Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. Smash the like button if you love me. Subscribe if you're new. Please have your say, and a very warm welcome to Monday's edition. No, Tuesday's edition of the DC Universe Daily. It is Tuesday. I've lost my days. I don't know. A very warm welcome anyway. So today I want to compare the first Shazam movie with Shazam Fury of the Gods. In fact, the more I watch Shazam Fury of the Gods, the more I love the first Shazam movie. Because the more I watch Shazam Fury of the Gods, the more I dislike it. The more I see it as an empty shell. I actually think that I was too kind in my non-spoiler review about that film. So let's compare the movies. The first Shazam film is a really, really good, maybe even great CBM. It's an analysis of children and their issues. It's actually a very deep dive. It's a very good film. Let's look at it. Billy Batson has abandonment issues. Freddie Freeman is a disabled boy who wishes he could be a superhero. Wishes he could meet Superman because he's physically unable to do the things these gods can do. Mary Marvel is, she's not really Mary Marvel, but Mary, she's Mary Marvel, isn't she? But Mary is worried about, does she leave her family and go far away to do her studies and better herself? And then you got Darla, who's this sweet, adorable little kid who's got so much love in her heart. I can't forget the scene when she's following Billy around at the school and he snaps at her and her little heart melts, and my big soulless heart melts as well. Then you've got Dr. Savannah, who is an emotionally abused child by his brother and his father. So this film really looks at children in the foster care system and the idea of being fostered and being raised by people who don't have your DNA, who are not blood relatives. So I think it's a very, very deep dive. It's a very emotionally grounded movie. Shazam Fury of the Gods is the very opposite. It's a quick cash grab. It's bigger. It costs more money. But nobody has any story arcs in this movie. I mean, Billy has a little one, which is he's concerned about not being around his family all the time because he's got those abandonment issues, hasn't he? So he gets a little arc. The problem is the best element of this character isn't Zachary Levi, it's actually Asher Angel. We see very, very little of Asher as Billy in the film. And I think that's absolutely disgusting. It says a lot that they wanted more Zachary Levi screen time because clearly they're paying him a lot more money and his wages demand he gets more time on the screen. But you're going to say, Mick, we want to see Shazam on the screen more than Billy Batson. It's an issue, everyone, because I don't think Zachary Levi is a good version of the character. And I think maybe with Asher being 18 years old now, maybe Levi shouldn't have even been in the film. And maybe Asher could have played both roles a lot more competently, if you ask me. That's my opinion. Mary was fantastic, as I said, in the first film. You know, very rarely do Hollywood captivate and represent a young woman's journey so well. And they did it in the first movie. She's so good. She's such a talented young actor. Unfortunately, Twitter just keeps on talking about how attractive she looks in the costume, and that's a shame. She is an attractive young woman, but that's not where my interests are. My interests are in talented artists, character development. And, you know, that's a shame, really. She's getting the kind of problems that Anna de Armas is getting, a really talented actor who's just spoken about for being an attractive young woman. I always find that disappointing myself. But the first film has so much depth. Everyone goes on a journey. Everyone goes on an arc. Who can forget that moment when Billy finally finds his biological mother and she rejects him? I was going to say a beautiful moment. It's a beautiful moment emotionally and creatively because Billy comes full circle. Throughout the film, Billy believes that his mother just lost him, but she gave him away. She didn't want him because she couldn't handle the responsibility of having a child. This happens every day in the real world. Sometimes when you put realism and fantasy together, you get something really beautiful. And sometimes when they attempt to do it, they do it really badly because they don't know how to do it. Well, in this film, the creative team put something really, really good together. All the children get this brilliant kind of arc. And then you get the other kid, and I forget his name, and I think it's the Latino kid who doesn't really say much, doesn't speak. He gets his little arc as well. So it's a wonderfully rounded, beautiful CBM. Maybe they shouldn't have made a sequel if they weren't going to pay it the same attention. That's my opinion. Excuse me. Got a frog in my throat. But I feel that, such a good movie deserved such a better sequel. And it doesn't get it. To me, the critics were right. Far from me to agree with critics, but the critics were right in their reviews and responses to Shazam! Fury of the Gods. There's something missing, and it's a soul. There's no soul to this film. So you've got this brilliant first movie, but the second movie doesn't really work in any way, shape, or form, because when you've got something better, you've really got a problem when you do something a lot worse. Rachel Zegler is a big issue. She's force-fed into the sequel because someone in Hollywood has decided to keep on giving her work because they've decided she's going to be the next big thing. She was in a Spielberg movie, she's going to play Snow White, etc., etc. She may be able to sing a little bit and be talented and have an okay voice. I don't think she's a particularly great actor. I think she can deliver her lines, but I think she's one of the most overrated new talents, using the word talent very, very loosely. And she does nothing in this film. Her so-called relationship with Freddy is a damp squib, and that's another issue with Shazam! Fury of the Gods as well. In the first film, you've got his friendship with Billy catalogued. It's his first real connection to another human being, and it's a beautiful relationship that starts in an interesting fashion, and then there's the jealousy element and how him and Billy fall out, only to unite as friends in the end of the movie. So it's a great moment. So Freddie Freeman is wasted in Shazam! Fury of the Gods, but used so beautifully in the first Shazam. It's there for everyone to see. I'm not breaking the fourth wall by explaining this to you, but I was listening to the soundtrack, which is also from the first film, which is also superior to the soundtrack in the sequel, if you ask me. You wasn't asking me, but that's what I'm here to do, so I decided to tell you anyway. And as I was listening to the soundtrack, it reminded me of how pure and great the first Shazam movie is. They actually did something amazing. It doesn't really matter about the box office, but they made enough money to make a profit. They were on a solid footing. A sequel shouldn't just be a cash grab. Of course, a sequel exists to make money. It's automatically a cash grab. The Marvel Cinematic Universe exists to make lots and lots of Marvel movies. It's an automatic cash grab, but phases 1 and 2 were outstanding, and Infinity War was the last great movie they made. It was their Empire Strikes Back. It ended in a great place. I don't like Endgame at all. I think it was the film totally dropped the ball, but Infinity War was the last thing great that the Marvel Cinematic Universe did, if you ask me. I do like Spider-Man No Way Home, by the way, but I don't think it's on the level of Infinity War. Again, Spider-Man No Way Home is the ultimate cash grab, isn't it? But that's what Hollywood was built on. Sequels and franchises to grab the cash. The problem is Shazam, Fury of the Gods, is the sequel that's supposed to be a cash grab that doesn't grab any cash because they're not trying. How did the guy who directed the first Shazam, how did the people who wrote the first movie write this movie? Is it even the same people? I'm not even sure. I haven't done my research. I apologize to know if the people who wrote the first movie wrote the second movie. But I do know that Walter Hamada was heavily involved in the development and narrative of the first film. He even made a suggestion about one of the scenes. So it was clear that Hamada had a lot to do with the first movie. Now, don't get me wrong. The Hamadaverse has failed, to succeed after they pushed out Snyder. No question about that. But it's clear that Hamada really cared about this movie and really wanted it to connect emotionally with children and families of all facets. The inclusion and representation of different cultures in the film is really well done, but it's brilliant. The first film is amazing, and the second film is nothing like it. Maybe Walter Hamada had already moved on during the development of that film, and they just didn't tell us officially, because there was an element missing from the sequel. It just was nothing like the first film. I've said it before, and I've said it again. I'll say it again. That the villains in Fury of the Gods weren't fit for purpose. They weren't written with any creative facets. You look at Savannah, as I've already said, he has this great story. We meet the character as a young boy, then we reunite with him as an adult. We understand where he's coming from. We're not going to justify all the people he kills. I do love how he just chucks his brother out the window, though. I thought that was fucking hilarious. I've said that before. So I've got a lot of time for the first Shazam movie. It's nowhere near up there for me like, the Snyderverse movies, or the Wonder Woman movie or the Aquaman movie, but it's a really good first attempt at the DCEU doing, a pure family movie. It's funny, but heartfelt and sad and tragic in places. And the second movie is nothing like that. It's an absolute tragedy, really. And I actually was saying after Black Adam, and when I reviewed Black Adam, and talking about Black Adam, I felt Fury of the Gods would be the better film because the first Shazam was absolutely a better film than Black Adam. Now, Black Adam made slightly more money than the first Shazam, but they spent so much money on it that it didn't make a profit. But I do believe the first Shazam is a varied movie, a better movie than Black Adam, but I did enjoy Black Adam. Some of the stuff were bad and cringy in the film, but I think all in all, they tried their best. I don't think they did the greatest of jobs with the JSA. In certain elements, I don't think we had enough of the JSA in the movie. But I did love Hawkman. I thought Hawkman was excellent. I thought Pierce Brosnan as Dr. Fate was excellent. That film also had some good themes. Where did it all go wrong for the Shazam universe? Well, I think one of the major reasons that it all failed in the end is The Rock. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was a problem. He probably shouldn't have been hired as Black Adam in the first place. He wanted to control the Shazam universe for his own ends. He was a producer on the first film. Not sure about the second film, but his production company were involved. But the first Shazam movie was really good. Ultimately, you didn't need The Rock in the first Shazam movie. They did really well with Dr. Savannah. They set up Mr. Mind in the post-credit scene, something they never used. I mean, I haven't even discussed the indignity of what they did to Savannah and Mr. Mind in that post-credit scene in Shazam Fury of the Gods. And, it's all to make fun out of people complaining that you teased something you didn't do. But where it all went wrong for the Shazam universe that had a really, really solid start and could have really been something good. Probably they had a great opportunity in the first Shazam, in a post-credit scene, to tease Black Adam and introduce him. You could have there was a little history lesson in the first Shazam movie, like we get in the Snyderverse, by the way, and in Wonder Woman, and in the Aquaman movie as well, the famous history lesson Zack Snyder started in Man of Steel. So they kind of speak about The Rock, or should I say Black Adam, in that history lesson. So there's a way of setting up Black Adam. So you don't necessarily need Black Adam in the first movie. That was their original plan, to have Black Adam as the villain. The idea should have been, and this is what they said originally, that in the third movie, Black Adam would be fighting Shazam. So what you do, you build him out. You build him out, right? You tease him. And then, I think in the second movie, that would have been a perfect place for Black Adam to begin his journey in the Shazam universe and do an Empire Strikes Back situation, end it in a cliffhanger. He beats the living shit out of Shazam and the Shazam family, right? Shazam's close to death. It finishes, then we get the third movie and we get the rematch, and that's your built out Shazam trilogy. It could have been great, but The Rock didn't want any involvement. He didn't want Black Adam to be involved in the Shazam movies, and he didn't want Shazam to be involved in his movies. So this was a big problem. So I'm saying that The Rock was never needed. People think he puts butts in seats, but clearly, considering Black Adam was a total, critical and financial failure, he clearly wasn't popular enough to do that. So you bring in the right actor who can give you a faithful depiction of this wonderful comic book villain, and you use him in a Shazam trilogy. And, it could have been done so well. Shazam had a great start, and you could have just added Black Adam to the Shazam trilogy mix, and it would have been great. Alas, they didn't do that. And, it's really hard, because all you have to do is go back and watch the first Shazam, as I've done recently, then go and watch Shazam! Fury of the Gods, and the first film has a lot of effort, thought, emotion and passion put into it. It's obvious they made a bona fide, really good movie for children and families. You think about Darla, how great she is in the first film. Then in the second film, she's obsessing over fucking Skittles. Who came up with that one? Mr. Skittles, the CEO of Skittles, right? Classic product placement, right? And it's shoddy. Darla was a great character played by a great young artist, right? And we saw that in the first movie, and the character was written so well. Freaking adorable. We all love Darla and the actor who plays her. She does a really, really good job. Is it Faith C. Herman who plays her? I can't remember. But the sequel didn't do anyone any favours, didn't do these characters any favours. And I think another issue with Shazam! Fury of the Gods is also the Shazam family. There's too many characters and you can't service them. It's a problem. You can service them, done in the right way, but it's the problem. And you have to ask the question, should the Shazam family have been, created by the end of the movie so they've got powers? The first movie. Maybe they should have left that alone. Maybe if we had a sequel where Billy gets the shit kicked out of him by Black Adam, then, he's laying on the floor and he raises them up and he gives them the powers, and then the movie finishes, right? And they have to fight Black Adam at first in the third movie. Maybe that's how they should have done it, because I think they got the powers too soon. So you got this sequel and you're forced to service all these characters, and you didn't service them very well. And I won't forget how when Billy dies, and I mentioned this the other day, that Mary Marvel is off screen, but Rachel Zegler's character is on screen. Someone hasn't had any kind of interactions with Billy, and Mary is literally his sibling, his foster sibling, and we barely see her reaction. Just so we can see Rachel Zegler with her Hollywood DNA getting some screen time. And that's the problem. This is Hollywood all over. There was no need for Rachel Zegler to be in Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Be honest. Let me know in the comments down below. If she wasn't in this movie, would you have noticed? Of course you fucking wouldn't. Right? But Mary Marvel is a brilliant character. Great in the first movie. The first movie set everything up wonderfully well, apart from giving them all powers maybe too soon. Apart from that, it's a really good film. It's about people making an effort to make a really, really good film. And ultimately, the second film let everything down. And maybe it's because they knew going forward they weren't going to get a third movie. Maybe Zachary Levi was right, that because of The Rock thwarting them at every angle, they couldn't make a competent movie. But surely it's not that difficult to write as emotional and heartfelt movie as they did with the first one. And you know, post-credit scenes were an issue because they wanted to use the JSA, but that doesn't stop you from writing a great movie. And you know, they were coming on Twitter, they were screaming and shouting about critics and fans. You were called out for making a bad movie because guess what? You made a bad movie. And basically the first movie exposes them so well. And it's very, very sad because we probably won't see these characters again. And basically the whole thing was a wasted opportunity to make a great Shazam trilogy. Personally, excuse my friend, personally, I would love to see another Batfleck movie. Because we never got to see the first one, did we? I mean, I'd like to have seen the Batfleck movie, should I say. Ben Affleck was speaking about it at SnyderCon Full Circle, and he spoke about Deathstroke in the movie. He was talking about a villain so formidable you don't know how Batman is going to stop him, beat him. And when I close my eyes and imagine this movie, I just think, wow, this movie would have been fire. And I still want to see this film. And I think if they are going to restore the Snyderverse, I know, very, very unlikely, and some of you think we should all move on. I get it, but this is the discussion we're having. And I think if they are going to restore the Snyderverse, I think the first thing they should do is allow Ben Affleck to make the Batfleck movie if he's all right with doing that, and if he still wants to do it. Seeing how he was speaking about the movie during Full Circle, to me it sounds like he hasn't let this movie go. And the potential is all there. This would be a good idea if they do restore the Snyderverse, because while we're waiting for Zack to, finish Rebel Moon and the third movie and everything he wants to do with that, Ben can make his 3-hour, magnum opus Batman movie. Epic Batman movie fighting Deathstroke. And we're going to, we would see Deathstroke getting his revenge in a psychological Dark Knight thriller. It would have been amazing. It can still be amazing. Ben's still at a good age. He can still do this movie, write it, direct it, star in it. Just allow Ben Affleck to make this movie. Because I think he still wants to make it, and I still want to see it, and I'm sure there's quite a few of you out there that still want to see it. I love The Batman by Matt Reeves, and he absolutely, should continue doing that as he is over on DC Elseworlds. But why can't Ben make his Batman movie also on DC Elseworlds, or if they sell the Snyderverse to Netflix? Everyone wants to work in the paradigm of Zack Snyder. Ezra would do it despite the issues we all have with Ezra. Ben would do it. Henry would do it. Ray Fisher would absolutely do it. We want to see this. I mean, the fans of the Snyderverse want to see this. At the end of the day, I am a Snyderverse fan as well as being a fully rounded DC fan. Yesterday, I was watching the director's commentary of Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, and I was just marveling at the insights that Zack was giving in this commentary and watching this marvelous, epic opus of a movie. Snyder makes everything big, but he always gives you depth. He talks about the stuff. He's talking about paintings that he tries to put on the screen in live action. He talks about, he talks about King Arthur and Lancelot, and he sees Superman as King Arthur and Batman as Lancelot. Now that's very, very interesting, because in that story, King Arthur is married to Guinevere, but then Guinevere and Lancelot fall in love. Now don't forget what he was wanting to do. He wanted, after Superman dies, for Lois and Bruce to have a relationship. That is exactly the Lancelot and King Arthur story, in a way. So you can see where he was going with this. I've said it before. A lot of people are triggered by some of the concepts he was going to use and didn't. A lot of people are triggered by his unused concepts. But here's the thing, he never used them. But I'm not triggered by things like Lois having an affair with Bruce and things like that. It's interesting, and if she thinks Clark's dead, she's not being disloyal. And it could have been really epic. But we should focus on the stuff that he did. Man of Steel, BVS, and the Snyder Cut are such impressive movies. And I believe when we're all dead and gone, when Zack's not around anymore as well, I think the next generations are going to marvel at these Snyderverse movies like I did with Dick Donner's Superman the movie, and say, wow, I just think that this generation has underappreciated Zack Snyder. But I think next generations, when they see past movies and go, oh, that's the MCU, but look at this Snyderverse, look at the beautiful images he puts on the screen, look at the deep story he's telling, look at the VFX. This man was doing something utterly unique, and I do think future generations are going to appreciate it. So I would absolutely love to see that Batfleck movie on the big screen or the small screen if it goes over to Netflix. I think there's possibilities there. And, during the Q&A, they would, Zack wasn't answering certain questions about Dick Grayson's death because he said he didn't want to give out any spoilers. Now, that's a very direct thing to say, because we all made a lot of assumptions about Full Circle, that this was going to be Zack telling the fans to move on. But he didn't do that. He even was asked if he'd like his stuff to go somewhere else so he could continue it. And he said he would like that. Zack isn't moving on. The Snyderverse stans aren't moving on. And me, as not necessarily a stan, but an appreciator of Zack's work, isn't moving on. Because his 3 DC films, for me, are absolutely special. Now, you don't have to like Zack's work. You don't have to like the Snyderverse. You can be looking forward to the Gunverse. That's okay. You may want me to move on, but I don't have to. What can I tell you? If it offends you that I'm talking about this stuff, I suppose you can't watch my videos. You'll have to unsubscribe, because the Snyderverse is something I'm going to talk about very often, because I still think Restore the Snyderverse and sell Snyderverse to Netflix is something that is still a reality at this moment. And Zack didn't say anything at Full Circle to dispel my anticipation for Restore the Snyderverse. And finally today, I saw something very funny on Twitter. Well, it's not funny. You probably won't find it funny, but it's official. The Writers Guild of America are on strike. Some of you may wonder what this means. Who are the Writers Guild of America? The Writers Guild of America, the WGA, is a union of every writer who writes in Hollywood, whether they're writers on streaming, on network television, or movies released into the cinema, in movie theatres. They are part of that union. There's been months of negotiations and they've collapsed. And I want to explain to you what this means for the creative bankruptcy. The content you've been looking forward to. So there's a lot of issues with this situation. They're not getting paid the money they think they should get paid. But there's another situation now. Hollywood have decided to begin wanting artificial intelligence, computers being programmed to write entertainment. That's right. Potentially, this could even happen as these writers are on strike. Artificial intelligence writing our entertainment. That is absolutely fucking ridiculous. I don't even understand the details of this. I don't know if I've got the facts right. It sounds fucking insane. And also, there's this thing going on where people writing for streaming aren't getting as much as people who write for film or broadcast television. I think I've got that one right as well. So it's very problematic. They've decided to go on strike. Personally, I think they've been on strike since 2016. I'm being fucking serious. Now, back in 2008, when we had this strike, I was gutted because 24 and Smallville, my two favourite shows at the time, had to go on hiatus. 24 decided not to do a day 7 until the following year because they had to do the 24-hour day thing and it just didn't work out. But we got an epic day 7 in the end with the return of Tony Almeida. So I want to explain to you the consequences for us, the consumer, because of this strike. Right. Anything that's all, this is obvious stuff, but just in case you're confused, anything that's already been written is absolutely fine. It can go to production. They can start making it. So let's focus on DC. So anything that's been written in terms of DC can start being produced. Now, anything that hasn't been written or is in the middle of being written will be ceased to continue to be written. Do you understand? It's my understanding that James Gunn's Superman Legacy has pretty much been written. I'm going to make the assumption that James Gunn, as a writer-director, is part of the Writers Guild of America and would have to adhere to that strike. I'm assuming he would be supporting them as well. But there is a conflict of interest because not only is he a writer-director, he's a co-CEO of DC Studios, a studio. Now, that's interesting, isn't it? I don't really understand how it works, but this is Hollywood. Hollywood is a toxic place that doesn't respect its employees, and writers are not getting the money they deserve. Now, I think most of them are creatively bankrupt. The inclusion structures now that they write in because of these damn companies make their lives harder. They make them harder for everyone. The Oscars have just announced their new inclusion rules. And I predict no one is going to pass any of these rules and they're going to have to go back on them. The whole thing is a joke. The whole industry is run by a bunch of lunatics living in echo chambers, attacking us, the consumer, for having opinions on their shit. So basically, in terms of DC, if it's already been written, it's going to happen. If they're in the middle of writing it, or they haven't started writing it yet, there's going to be huge delays now. I would foresee maybe 2 to 4 weeks of these strikes going on. Any longer would be a disaster. I think that the studios would want to resolve this as soon as possible. But considering they have the means of artificial intelligence writing now, obviously the editing of a script is something different, but if they can do it without the writers, they will do it without the writers. But can AI write a great script? Not that anyone, no human being is writing great scripts right now, but it'll be interesting to see what they do. But right now, if you think you're living in a great era of entertainment, your entertainment is going to be interrupted because of the Writers Guild of America strike. As I said back in 2008, I was devastated, but supported the writers. Now, as a writer myself, don't forget, I write plays, I star in plays and direct plays. All that I do for free. I don't get paid. I make the stuff. I'm an amateur playwright for my community. And, you know, I basically run a theatrical association. It ain't a big deal. I ain't fucking Sir Laurence Olivier, you know, I'm not Andrew Lloyd Webber or something, but I do it, but I don't get paid. So I support the Writers Guild of America members. Of course I do. They should be getting paid, while the actors are getting paid, you know, 60, 70, 80 million or whatever they get fucking paid these days. And the writers don't get paid. You know, the people who create behind the scenes are not getting paid what they're worth. But this isn't a new issue in the industry. This is something that's been going on for a very, very long time. So I hope you now understand the situation. I was very happy to be of service. This has been Tuesday's edition of the DC Universe Daily with me, Mick, your host with the most. Smash the like button if you love me. Subscribe if you're new. Please have your say. Smash the notification bell so you know when Big Boy Mick is coming online. I will see you on Wednesday's DC Universe Daily. Until then, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen. Don't miss me too much. Parting is a great sorrow. See you again soon.